Good morning, everyone. So before we start the meditation, I just want to do a little introduction to it. My talk this month's focus is on healing. And what I'm going to be talking about is the spiritual practitioner and the healing, okay? So when I do the meditation, what I'd like you to do, I'm going to do it slowly to start with, then we'll have some quiet time. But I'm going to do it in the first person, the I am. And as I say that, I invite you to say the I am, whatever the I am is, for yourself, okay? Because whether you know it or not, you're all spiritual practitioners, one way or another. This is just going to give you a little bit more depth and enhance the process. Okay, Anthony, lead us in. I am healing. I am healing. I am healing from my soul. I am healing. I am healing. I am healing from my soul. We are healing. We are healing. We are healing from our soul. So let us just join in consciousness. And I know there is one eternal life, forever giving of itself, and that's God's life, my life, right here and right now. I hold and support myself in a vision of love, light, and life. I know that I am whole, perfect, and complete at all times and all ways. I know that the divine healing presence of good and God is in me, and it energizes, vitalizes, and enhances all healthy and mature cells in my body. And I know that the cells that have served their useful purpose, along with any that do not support my perfect well-being, are now dissolved. And the energy merges back with the universal energy, and that which is of form is processed and eliminated through my bodily functions. And so I know that with this declaration, I am now complete. And I take this into meditation. And I know that God is for me because God is in me and God is part of me and is me in my own unique way. And so I know that everything is possible in my journey. So I move forward with belief, with faith, with confidence, and with trust, knowing that all is good and all is God. And I give thanks, and I let it be so, and so it is. I am healing. I am healing. I am healing from my soul. I am healing. I am healing. I am healing from my soul. We are healed. We are healed. We are healed from our soul. Okay, well, here we go. So the spiritual practitioner in the healing, the affirmation for the month is, I have the faith to believe that healing is not only possible, but inevitable. So there's really three key elements here. One is belief, one is faith, one is prayer. So I'm going to talk a little bit of all of those. And then I was licensed as a practitioner of science of mind, a spiritual practitioner 38 years ago. So I've got a little bit of experience in the area. So I'm going to be sharing some of the do's and don'ts with respect to the art of healing. And keep in mind, you may never work and help anybody else, but you got yourself, and you're always going to be working on yourself one way or the other. So it's very important to get these ideas down. So the first one is belief. It's done unto you as you believe. ERNEST HOLMES said, we come to understand then that the answer to prayer is in the prayer when it is prayed. The belief in the one praying sets in motion the law of love, which is a fundamental law of the universe. You know, lots of times you see these, have you ever seen these people on these spiritual shows where they have these immaculate healings and some evangelical stuff? You ever see that? And then a couple of months later, they got the affliction again. They got the disease because it was happening in the moment, but they never followed through and did the work that was required to release any negative energy and belief that they had. ERNEST HOLMES said the word disease means lack of ease, dis-ease, and abnormal is the absence of a normal condition. So really what it is we're all whole, perfect, and complete as it is, as we are. It's just that over a period of time, we've come up with some negative beliefs that we hold about ourselves primarily that inhibited this healing operation to work with us. A guy by the name of Frank Stone said, a real practitioner isn't doing the healing for you. Instead, he or she creates a space in which you can discover your own innate healing power. And that's what it's all about. It's about really getting into that place where that can work for you. The Dalai Lama said, happiness is the highest form of health. And of course, Jesus is one of my favorite. And he says, have faith in God. So there's the faith. For verily I say unto you that whoever says to this mountain, be removed and cast into the sea, and shall not doubt. There's that word, doubt. That's one of the things that's got to be gone in our life. And he that has no doubt in his heart, but shall believe that these things which he says comes to pass, he shall have whatever he says. Therefore, he says, I say unto you, whatsoever that you desire, when you pray and believe that you'll receive them, you shall have them. So that's the key. The key is having that faith, believing, and removing any doubt. The next idea here is replace a fear in faith, or replace a faith in fear with the faith of God. Lots of people have fear when they come down with something. Anybody had some kind of an affliction and had a lot of fear around it? Oh my God, what's going to happen to me? And, you know, that's one of the key things, is that the enemies of a consciousness of faith have to be gone. And that, of course, is fear, worrying. Anybody do any worrying? Really, what you're doing when you're worrying is you're giving power to whatever it is that you're worrying about. And you really see that God in you, through you, does not say, oh, no, you really don't want that. It says that if that's what you're focused on and worried about, then that's what you want. Just like when you plant corn, God doesn't say this to the soil, doesn't say, oh, no, you don't want corn, you want peas. We're going to grow peas. It don't work like that, does it? And then there's the doubting and the negative thinking and the skepticism. I come across this neat little thing not long ago, and it said that fear knocked at the door, faith answered, and there was no one there. Faith is something that people claim to have. Oh, I have faith. Faith is not a word or not a cerebral thing. It's a belief. And it's a belief that has no contradiction in it, but is unconditionally accepted. Faith, as Ernest Holmes said, is a power of prayer. It's a mental attitude against which there is no longer any contradiction in the mind that entertains it. Faith is a mental attitude which is so convinced of its own idea, which so completely accepts it, that any contradiction is unthinkable and impossible. And before such a mental attitude can be created, there must be nothing left in the subjective thought which contradicts our objective affirmation. And again, that's the clearing. It's the cleansing of the thought. I'll talk a little bit more about the prayer in a minute. There's different ways of doing it, but the main thing is really to get in touch and acknowledge the spiritual presence within oneself, all-powerful, all-knowing, not separate. So it's not separate from us. It is a part of who and what we are. It's simply there, and it's up to us to get in touch with that. And then when we're doing with the work, we use the affirmative prayer and whatever the affirmation of truth is. Not about the condition, but it's about the truth, about being whole, perfect, and complete. So I'm going to go into a little bit more here and give you some examples about what I experienced. One of the things is a lot of people always ask God to do it for them. You know, and that looks like God is separate from us when you're asking God to do it for us. We don't ask God to do it for us. We ask to have the wisdom or the understanding or the knowledge or to get some direction. However, it's just a knowingness. It is a positive, complete affirmation that we put in there that is the truth. And the Spirit or God in us automatically operates on that. So you could have your prayer, which is fear or worry, or one can have the confidence and the trust. And there's many different ways that can work. Point. When you're working with yourself, or in particular, if you're working with someone else, it's not personal. Do not become personally involved. If you become personally involved with the individual, it takes away the power of the healing because one is involved. Anybody get someone close to you that you're working with? know what I do? I know how to do prayer, and I know how to do treatment and how to work it. However, when it's someone close to me, I know that it's really hard not to get involved. Oh. So what I do is, that's when I call a practitioner, a spiritual practitioner. And I get prayer from them to help me be clear about what it is that I need to do and stay away from being personally involved. Because the ultimate act of caring for someone, listen to this carefully, is not to care at all. Okay? The ultimate act of caring is not to care at all. Because as soon as you start caring, you become attached. And that's where the problem comes. Attachment to the individual and attachment to the outcome. We then reduce the effectiveness of the prayer and the work that we're doing. Easy to say. I mean, it's a lot more difficult. I just had that not long ago with my brother when I had to make the decision to pull off life support and let him go. And so when before I did that, the first thing I did was call a spiritual practitioner to get prayer treatment for me, to be able to facilitate that and to do that and make it a wonderful experience for Anna and my daughter and my cousin and his wife and my brother's best friend. He was not conscious, but of course he was still there in body. And it was a whole lot easier for me to do that because I believe in what the prayer was that the practitioner was doing, and that embodied in me and gave me the opportunity to do that and not make it a sad or terrible experience, but to make it a wonderful experience and an experience of love. And you can ask Anna about that, what we went through, and it was one of the most joyous experiences that I've ever had in a passing. And, you know, I've been involved, I'm not new at dealing with people passing and that. One of the things that I do is I have a particular prayer that I do when someone's on the edge. And if I get called, say, to the hospital or to a hospice or wherever they are, because it's getting close, before I go in, I do this prayer in the parking lot or wherever I am. And invariably, 90% of the time when I walk through, the people say, "Oh, you just missed it. They just passed." Well, I know that because I did the prayer. Because, you know, what one has to realize is sometimes death is the healing. I can remember being a keen practitioner and I'm going out there to heal the world. And I got my first 3 clients and I've gone out and I did my prayer work for them, and they all had terminal cancer, and the next day they died. I was devastated because I was attached to the outcome. Because I thought I knew what the healing was. That was a very rude awakening for me and a very powerful lesson. Because what I didn't know at the time, because I was attached to the outcome, see, that's getting that involvement, attachment. Don't get attached to an outcome. It's not up to you to determine what the healing is. It's up to the spirit and the individual to determine that at that level. Okay? I did not know and realize that death could be a healing. So the joke was around the practitioner class and that oh, just ask, better careful if you ask Doug for a healing because you're going to get it all right. You'll die. So I took a lot of guff over that one. It was a very interesting lesson. And you know, it happens. I've probably been through 50 or 60 experiences like that, maybe more, where I've been asked. And I even was asked one time where a gentleman had a hard time passing if I would come up and do a healing treatment for him. And so I come up and did the healing treatment, talked to him for a while and did the healing treatment, and he passed overnight. Okay, so it's really an interesting thing, but it's so hard not to be attached because we think that sometimes healing is getting over that. Well, they did. They get over what it is, but it was just time to move on. So the other thing that goes along with that is to remember that we don't do the healing. I don't do the healing. You don't do the healing. The other person doesn't do the healing. It's the spiritual part that does the healing. It's God through us, by means of us, that facilitates that healing. And just because you're doing the work, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person that you're working with is going to have a healing. Because they have to do their work too. Their work is to believe in what the work is that you're doing. Easy to say, but that's their job. The other thing as a spiritual practitioner is to cultivate the believability in the client. You can't convince anybody to believe anything, but you can help cultivate believability, because if they believe, then that possibility exists that that can be done. There is no timeline on the healing. Sometimes it can be just like that. Sometimes it takes a while for everything to process inside. So there is no timeline. You can't go say, oh, well, I'll do the prayer and you'll be okay in 36 hours. It's not like that. When people are on the brink like that and I do the treatment, the prayer, it happens really quick most of the time. Usually within 24 hours, sometimes closer. I can remember too when I was doing some practitioner work, and I had this really interesting lady. She was an elderly lady. And she had been over in Scotland and had been in a car accident and had been going around for about 5 years with pain. She couldn't get rid of the pain. Physiotherapy, drugs, all kinds of stuff. She couldn't get rid of the pain. And so I had her in for a session. Her daughter brought her to see me. And I was cultivating a sense of believability in her. And keep in mind, a spiritual practitioner does not counsel. Okay? When I work with people, I always ask them, okay, you want counseling and you want practitioner work. So I'll have a counseling session, finishing that, and then I'll open up a practitioner session. Totally different things. And in a practitioner session, it's not a matter of counseling. It's a matter of maybe asking questions to help the person get clear on what it is that they really want to experience. So I had this lady there, and she was just at her wit's end, didn't know what she was going to do. So I asked her some questions, and I said, okay, I'm going to do a prayer for you. So I did the prayer, and at the end of it, just as I closed it, and she opened her eyes, all of a sudden she had a great big, just like that, and she stood up and walked out and never had the pain again. Just like that. So it can happen like that. And another time, there was a lady that I was asked to do prayer work. I never met her. This is the thing. You do not have to be present, neither. The person does not have to be in the room with you. The person asked this friend of mine if someone could do a prayer work for her. She had a brain tumor, and it was inoperable. They couldn't do anything with it, so her last-ditch effort was to go to the Mayo Clinic to see what they could do in California. So before she went, she called and asked her friend, and I did the prayer work for her. And she got down to the Mayo Clinic, and they were very rude with her and very obnoxious with her because, why are you wasting our time? There's nothing wrong with you. There was nothing there. The tumor was dissolved, just like that. So it is possible. And of course, where you come across that in the scripture is in Matthew chapter 8, verse 13. And that's the healing of the centurion servant. So a Roman centurion, he was high up in the Roman army, had heard of the miracle work of Jesus, and his servant, whom he loved deeply, was dying. And he went to Jesus and asked if Jesus could do a healing for him. And Jesus said, okay, well, let's go. And the centurion says, well, look, I'm in the Roman army, and I, because of who you are, I really can't do that. Can you do something? And Jesus was so touched by the centurion and his love for the servant that he said, go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so it is done unto thee. And his servant was healed at the same time. So it can be done remotely. Because you see, in mind, there is no space and there is no time. Okay? It's all one. So that can happen. For the one seeking the healing, it's all about faith, belief, and attitude. And so it's up to the individual to cultivate all three. And so if we're just doing the work for ourselves, it's up to us to cultivate those three: the faith, the belief, and our attitude. And if we're going to ask a practitioner because we feel that we need a little help, then that's what we got to cultivate inside of ourselves. And the one thing about this is it's all easy to talk about, isn't it? It's all easy to talk about until we're in the middle of something, but that's where we get to put the pedal to the metal and we really get to work that. So the best I could say to you right here and right now is to leave you with this idea about what Ernest Holmes said about prayer. He said, since some people have been healed through prayer while others have not, the answer is not that God has responded to some and not to others, but that some have responded to God more than others. The answer to prayer is in the prayer, but what is a prayer? A prayer is a movement of thought within the mind of the one praying along a definite line of meditation, that is, for a specific purpose. Prayer is a recognition of Spirit's omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence, and a realization of the individual's unity with Spirit. So I know for you, as I know for myself, that the divine healing presence of good and God is in each and every one of us right now, and I hold and support everyone here in a vision of love, life, and light, knowing that we're all whole, perfect, and complete. I declare it, I accept it, I know it to be so, and so it is. So it is.